You stand there cold, empty, like the space between the stars. You wonder why. Why you're the lone wolf in a world full of sheep huddled together, pretending that their fake laughs and shallow talks make them safe. But you know better. You know that in the end, when night creeps in, when shadows claw their way across cracked pavements and broken glass, you're alone. And that's the truth they're all too weak to face. Let's get real for a second. Pain ain't a guest. It's a resident in your soul, rent-free, reminding you of every scar, every betrayal, every moment you stood with fists clenched and eyes burning while the world turned its back. This ain't no fairy tale where the hero gets a crown and a throne. No, warrior, this is reality. And reality don't hand out favors. You see, moving alone isn't just a choice, it's survival. It's knowing that every damn time you trusted someone, they shattered pieces of you that you're still picking out of your skin like shards of glass. And yet you're still here, still standing. How? Because deep down, you know this truth. When the dust settles, the only one who's gonna drag your broken, bloody body off the battlefield is you. Yeah, it's a bitter pill to swallow, but bitterness is a taste you've grown used to, ain't it? You learned that the smiles they flash are knives waiting to sink into your spine. The promises they make are just words, empty as a void. The world don't owe you loyalty. It don't owe you love or even a damn ounce of kindness. You owe it to yourself to move alone, to keep pushing forward even when your legs scream for rest and your heart begs you to stop. Some say moving alone makes you cold. Let them say it. Let them watch as you carve your path, each step a testament to the wars you fought and the ones still waiting. Because you don't fight for the cheers. You don't fight for the pats on the back or the fleeting moments of validation. You fight because there's fire in your veins and iron in your bones. You fight because giving up was never in your blood. Listen to me. They'll tell you that strength lies in numbers, that you're better off surrounded. But you've seen how the strong fall when the crowd scatters and the lights fade. You've seen the so-called friends vanish when the storm comes crashing. So let them be the crowd. Let them cling to each other, desperate for warmth. You're built different. You were forged in silence, baptized in the kind of tears that burn instead of soothe. You don't need their warmth. You are the storm. You talk to yourself in the pitch-black nights when the wind whispers secrets only you can hear. You say it out loud. Keep moving. One more step. One more breath. Alone or not, you keep going. You don't seek pity. Hell no. You spit on pity. You look in the cracked mirror and see eyes that have stared down 100 battles and dared each one to break you. They failed, didn't they? You've walked roads where hope was just a word, a joke people threw around, while you scraped by with nothing but grit and a heartbeat that refused to quit. Let's not sugarcoat it. There's no redemption arc here, no light at the end of a tunnel painted with broken dreams. There's just you, your shadow, and the promise you made yourself when you were gasping for air, clawing your way out of another pit life threw you in. They'll try to pull you back into their twisted idea of comfort, to tell you that moving alone means you're lost. But screw that noise. You're not lost. You're the one who found truth in the dark, who learned that the only person worth betting on is the one staring back at you in that cracked mirror. Alone isn't lonely. Alone is freedom, it's power, it's knowing that every victory, every scraped knee, and every ounce of sweat is yours. You move alone because you don't have the luxury of anchors. You learned the hard way that people love the idea of loyalty until it asks for sacrifice. But you've bled for your own cause, spilled enough of it to stain a river. So why the hell would you tie yourself to someone who'd drop you at the first sign of struggle? That's right, you wouldn't. And here's the lesson they don't teach in their polished motivational speeches. Being alone sharpens you. It strips away the lies, the excuses, the crutches. It's the raw, brutal honesty of waking up and knowing that if you don't fight, you'll sink. Moving alone makes you face yourself, the demons, the doubts, the memories that threaten to choke you in your weakest moments. But guess what? You choke them back. In those quiet moments, when the world's asleep and the moon glares down like an old foe, you whisper it again. I move alone. Not because you hate the world, but because you learned to love yourself enough not to rely on it. The weight on your shoulders is yours, but so is the strength in your stride. And when the world sees you, jaw clenched, eyes that pierce through the noise, they know. They're looking at someone who doesn't need saving. You don't move alone because it's easy. No, easy is joining the flock, surrendering to comfort and conformity. You move alone because it's necessary. Because it reminds you that you can stand the pain, the losses, and the moments that rip at your core. Moving alone doesn't make you weak. It makes you unbreakable. So keep your head up, warrior. Embrace the solitude like an old friend, and let them wonder how you keep going. Let them envy the strength that comes from knowing you're enough, even when everything else falls away. Because at the end of this brutal, unforgiving road, there's no trophy, no applause, just the satisfaction of knowing that you walked it alone and damn well survived. You walk this path, step by step, each stride heavier than the last. The world may try to tell you that the way forward is crowded, that strength is found in numbers, but you know the truth. When the sun sets and silence wraps around you like a suffocating shroud, no one hears your thoughts, no one shares the weight pressing on your chest. That's when the real fight begins. The dark isn't just a backdrop, it's a test. It whispers doubts, drags old ghosts into the spotlight, and dares you to break. But breaking isn't an option, is it? The fire in your gut won't allow it. So you take another step, feet scraping on ground that never promised comfort. You stare down the haunting faces of the past, their sneers and their taunts. You dare them to push you because, unlike them, you've learned to feed on your own silence, to find nourishment in the ache. Remember those days when you were on your knees, choking back rage, tasting the bitter tang of defeat? The days where hope was a flicker buried deep in the ashes of a burned-out dream. You dug your fingers into that dirt and pulled yourself up, inch by inch. And no one can take that from you. Those moments, those battles where you stood alone, made you into the weapon you are now. They sharpened your edges, carved resilience into your bones. You're not here to fit in. You're not here to make others feel comfortable with their mediocrity. You stand apart, a figure that moves through the crowd, but isn't part of it. They see you, they whisper, but they don't understand. They don't know what it costs to stand on your own, to build walls around a heart too used to betrayal, to say, I don't need you, I've got me. And that's not pride, it's necessity. The streets you walk, the dark alleys, and the cracked sidewalks, they're not just places. They're markers of every step where you could have stopped, every place you could have let the weight win. But you didn't. You kept moving, driven by that whisper in your mind that said, one more day, one more fight. And let's not pretend that makes you invincible. There are nights where exhaustion sinks in deep, where the silence isn't peaceful but suffocating. There are nights when the grief hits so hard, it feels like a knife, twisting and tearing. But even then, even when your vision blurs and fists tremble, you remember, you move alone. Not because you want to, but because you've learned the cost of leaning on others who crumble when you need them most. In this harsh reality, being alone is both a curse and a badge of honor. It marks you as someone who didn't flinch when faced with truth, who took every lie, every betrayal, and transformed them into lessons. You are the dark man, the one who doesn't wait for a savior, the one who rises without applause, without witnesses, the one who moves, battered but unbroken, through the silence. Because if no one is watching, you still fight. And that's what makes you different. That's what makes you unstoppable. Even when the storms come, battering against what little shelter you have built in your mind, you face it down. You grit your teeth and lean into the howling winds, defiant, fearless. Not because you're fearless by nature. No, fear lives in you like it does in everyone else. The difference is that you've learned to master it, to use it as fuel when everything else runs dry. The world sees the rage in your eyes and mistakes it for anger. But you know it's survival. It's the fire that's kept you from crumbling under the weight of everything that's tried to bury you. People think moving alone is cold, heartless. They don't see the sacrifices, the sleepless nights spent staring at the ceiling, every muscle aching, every thought a jagged edge cutting at your resolve. They don't see the moments where giving up would be easier, where surrender whispers like a friend. But you laugh in the face of surrender, not because you're reckless, but because you know the price of weakness. You've paid it before, and you swore to yourself, never again. Every scar on your body, every mark etched into your skin, tells a story that no one will ever fully understand. And that's fine. Let them believe what they want. Let them think your path is madness, that moving alone is a sign of failure or isolation. They don't know what it's like to stand at the edge of the abyss and take a step forward, not back, with nothing but your own will to keep you from falling. And here's the truth that most people will never grasp. There is freedom in moving alone. Freedom from the chains of expectation, from the need for approval that turns warriors into beggars. You don't need to hear, "I'm proud of you," or wait for someone's nod of acknowledgement. You have long since abandoned that hunger. You learn to feed yourself on the victories that no one else sees. The battles fought in silence, the wars won in the quiet places of your mind. When the sun comes up, casting light on a world that will never know your name or your sacrifices, you're not bitter. No, you stand there, bloodied, worn, and more alive than those who sleep through life. You take that moment and claim it, not because anyone said you could, but because you earned it. Because when everyone else chose comfort, you chose to walk alone, and that has made all the difference. So when you hear them, the voices that scoff and jeer, when you see the eyes that glance at you with pity or misunderstanding, You don't flinch. You don't bend. You don't break. Let them wonder. Let them gossip. You'll be too busy moving forward, alone but powerful, carving out your destiny with hands that never stopped fighting. Every day you move forward, each step dragging like chains through the dirt. But those chains, they're not just weights. They're your trophies, reminders of every fight you took on and survived. You pull them, not because you have to, but because they're yours. They're proof that when the world swung, you stood and swung right back. Others look at you and only see the surface, the dark, the harsh lines, the sharp edges. They think you're unfeeling, detached, like steel forged without a soul. But they don't know what it costs to keep going when every instinct tells you to fold, when every breath feels like swallowing glass. You're not here to explain yourself. You don't owe that to anyone. They wouldn't get it anyway. The late nights where your fists balled up, nails biting into palms to hold back the rage that clawed at your chest. The moments where silence pressed down so hard, it felt like drowning. You faced those nights alone, and you emerged not because you wanted to, but because something deeper, something primal, pushed you up when everything else was ready to fall apart. It's that grit, that unspoken pact you made with yourself, that you'd keep fighting even when there was no one around to see it. Moving alone is the road less taken, not because it's glorified or praised, but because it's feared. People cling to comfort, to warmth, to the illusion that safety lies in numbers. But safety is a myth, a fragile shield that shatters the second reality strikes. You learned that early, didn't you? You learned that promises were paper, loyalty was fickle, and the only constant was the echo of your own heartbeat, relentless, refusing to quit. And so you moved alone, and every time they asked why, you just gave that half smile, that look that said you wouldn't understand. They don't know that moving alone isn't about being untouchable. No, it's about being willing to face the truths they run from. It's about looking in the mirror and owning up to every failure, every mistake, every regret, and saying, yeah, I did that, and I'm still here. It's not arrogance. It's acceptance. It's knowing that the world doesn't hand out second chances. It takes them away the second you hesitate. And you don't hesitate anymore. You've learned to trust that voice inside that says, keep going. Even when every step forward feels like dragging your bones across broken glass. There's power in that. A power they'll never see because they don't have the eyes for it. Their vision is clouded by comfort, by complacency, by the need for approval that keeps them chained to the opinions of others. But you broke those chains a long time ago. Now, you carry only the ones that tell your story, that remind you of the wars you fought alone, the ones that make you who you are. Keep moving, warrior. When the wind howls and the road stretches on without end, remember that you were born for this. You are forged in the dark places, in the silence that others fear, in the moments where strength isn't just a choice, it's the only option. Keep moving, not for them, not for recognition, but for the promise you made to yourself. Because in a world that fears the dark, you are the one who walks it willingly, alone, unyielding, and free. And when the night comes, thick and suffocating, wrapping around you like a cloak, you don't shiver, you don't flinch. You've been here before. The darkness doesn't scare you. It's an old acquaintance. It's walked alongside you when everyone else turned their backs, when the lights of comfort and company flickered out one by one. In the quiet of those hours when the world shuts its eyes and slips into dreams, you stay awake. You listen to the sound of your own breath, steady and sharp, like the rhythm of a drum that only you can hear. There's something powerful about knowing that no one's coming to save you. It sounds brutal, even cruel, to those who haven't tasted that kind of solitude. But for you, it's not cruelty. It's clarity. It sharpens your senses, sharpens your resolve. You move forward, not because someone's cheering you on or holding your hand, but because you've made it this far. And turning back isn't an option. It never was. People talk about support, about networks, about leaning on each other like it's the only way to make it. But you know the truth they avoid. Support is a luxury, and luxuries crumble when life gets real. When the storm hits, they scatter, their unity as thin as paper in the rain. You've seen it happen. You've watched as the strong faltered when their crutches snapped, when the people they relied on fell away like leaves in the wind. But not you. You were already standing on your own 2 feet, already staring into the storm with a silent challenge in your eyes. It isn't pride that keeps you moving alone. It's survival. It's knowing that the only person who's guaranteed to be there when the world cracks open is you. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you prepared. It makes you relentless. When you walk into a room, people sense it, even if they don't understand it. There's an edge to you, a hardness that isn't just from scars, but from the spaces between them. From the nights you survived when surviving felt like a battle against everything inside you. You tell yourself, time and again, that moving alone is both your burden and your strength. It's the reason you stand tall when others sink to their knees. It's the reason you can face the days that would break them, the nights that would leave them begging for an end. Because you know that in those moments, when hope is nothing but a whisper and the silence screams, that's where you thrive. That's where you find the part of you that refuses to surrender, that digs in deeper when the weight feels impossible. And here's the thing, they'll never know that about you. They'll see the surface, the calm, the unbothered face, and think they understand. Let them think it. Let them believe the stories they create to make sense of you. Because when it comes down to it, when the lights go out and the crowd disperses, you'll still be moving, one step at a time, one breath at a time, alone but unyielding. You're not waiting for rescue, not holding out for a hand to pull you from the edge. You move forward because that's who you are. You move forward because stopping isn't in your blood, and fear is just another voice you learned to silence. You are the dark man, the one who faces the emptiness with eyes wide open, unafraid of what he'll find in the depths. Because no matter how hard it gets, how heavy the burden, you know one thing with certainty: you are enough. And that truth, raw and simple, is what makes you unstoppable. Keep moving, warrior. The path is yours alone, and no one can take that from you.